أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء المرسلين وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد. Assalamu alaikum جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته. Thank you very much for joining us for this online session webinar on preparation for month of Ramadan. I realized that maybe perhaps it could be better that we could have done it next weekend because it's quite near the month of Ramadan. But then we have been doing this for several years and people go away. The last weekend, people, for example, have family commitments or they go away and then they miss. So we thought at least this is the best time that we have completed 15th of Ramadan and we are leaving the next weekend open for people to do other commitments and have a session here. So this year, unlike previous years that only one person used to do all the aspects, this year we divided it into two. The first 40 minutes will be done. Actually, I should have started myself with the spiritual aspects, but because Sheikh Mehdi has to, of course, go and rest in Qom, he will start with the fiqh aspects, about massage and fiqh aspects. And then, inshallah, once he's done, around 2:40 to 45, because he has some questions, then I will join in to do the presentation on the spiritual aspect, inshallah. So, Bismillah.
Thank you so much, Baba. My voice is coming through clearly, I hope.
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wa sallallahu ala Muhammadin wa alihi at-tayyibin at-tahirin. I hope all of you are keeping well. Inshallah, as my father mentioned, I hope to go through some of the ahkam to do with fasting in these next 30 minutes, 40 minutes ahead of us. I would also like to recommend and mention this, that please feel free to comment and question. I'll pause at times, but even as you want, you can yourself take up the mic and ask questions. Inshallah, as much as possible, I'll try to answer these questions. Okay, so what I had in mind that we could look at in this short period is, first of all, just one point about children and fasting. And then moving on to fasting, what if it is very difficult for us to fast, or somebody who has just become baligha, if it is very difficult for them to fast. A little bit about travel, although we won't, inshallah, go into the details about travel. If anybody has, by the way, also, yeah, if anybody does have further questions, and either because of the time restriction or because I'm not aware right now of the answer, you can feel free to take my contact and follow up with me, inshallah. So fasting and travel, briefly, a little bit about expecting and feeding mothers, those who are sick, qada fasts, a little bit about things that break our fast, and we're not going to go into medicine. Medicine is here in this slide, but we're not going to reach that, inshallah. Okay, so first of all, without any further ado, if there's no comments from the get-go, let's start with this first point about children. So one thing to know is that it was not the culture of the Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam to somehow impress upon their young children who were not yet baligh to fast. Okay, we have in the ahadith that at the age of 7 we ask our children to fast, but that too we tell them then to break it, like either half of the day, more or less, and when they become hungry we tell them to break it. So maybe somehow encouraging them to be part of this culture, this Islamic tradition, but not making their bodies undergo that severe difficulty of fasting for the entire day. And then it goes on to say that at the age of 9, you should maybe tell your sons, so they're still not baligh, but they're now 9 years old, to fast. But even then, because they're not baligh yet, don't make a big deal about it. Tell them to break their fast when they are thirsty or hungry. So this is something to keep in mind. Unfortunately, sometimes in our cultures, we make too big of a deal about young kids fasting, and we want to reward them for fasting, and we want to ask them that, beta, are you fasting? 5-year-old, 6-year-old child. There's no need to do that. This, my humble understanding, talking to teachers, is that this is maybe not even advisable to do. At a certain young age, it is physically not good for the child to fast. And even beyond that, if they're not yet baligh, there's no need to really impress upon them to fast. They can fast, but then they can open their fast because they're not yet baligh. It's not a big deal. So we should try to somehow, be careful and maybe even change this culture that may have come about of really over encouraging and making a big deal about children fasting. This was not really the practice of the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. That said, when they are baligh, so the common opinion of Maraji is that when a girl is 9 years old, she is now baligha. When a child becomes baligh, then it's very serious. Then they have to fast. What if it's difficult? Well, fasting is difficult for everybody. It's not going to be easy. The whole point is to go through that sacrifice and difficulty and test and show our obedience to Allah by refraining from all those pleasures that we normally can engage in. It's not like, generally speaking, for most people, it may seem very hard initially, but the human body is amazing in its ability to adapt. And over time, it becomes, not even that hard maybe for somebody to fast if they do it by the end of the month Ramadan. I'm guessing we get used to it as well. I had a friend in the Hausa who was from Sweden, and he was saying that in Sweden, in the summer times, like you have just a couple of hours where you can eat, but still the whole community fasts, and it was a a community, a very spiritual experience for Muslims over there in that lengthy day of the summer to all fast together, and despite the difficulty, they all did it. So we shouldn't then when the child is baligh now we shouldn't be quick to say that, oh no, they're not able to, or we're not able to. No, when we are, when it is our responsibility, then we have to put up with the difficulty. Okay, but that said, of course, there are some exceptions. For example, there is a concept in fiqh known as haraj or mashaqqa, meaning that when somebody is undergoing an extreme amount of difficulty, this is now a level of difficulty that normal people cannot bear to tolerate. Then, because of that, what is wajib, be it fasting, be it, I don't know, shaking hands with a non-mahram or something like that, what is haram or what is wajib changes because of the haraj or mashaqqa. So for example, if somebody is really unable to fast, like they're overwhelmed with thirst, they're in the heat, maybe they were in the heat of the summer and they're really not able to continue, and they feel that they have reached that level of extreme difficulty that people cannot tolerate, then they are allowed to open their fast. Now, I definitely saw this in the fatwa of Ayatollah Sistani, but I think even other marajah like Ayatollah Khamenei say this as well, that even in that scenario, such a person should just eat or drink the necessary amount. They still need to do the qada. Their fast is now invalid, but still they can't take this as a license to just, you know, overeat and indulge and have a full nice meal and soda and chai and everything. So if you are fasting and somebody is overwhelmed with difficulty, then they should just have like a glass of water or whatever they need, and then continue to refrain, and then still have to do the qada later on for that day. There's another point as well, that sometimes people may have a job. Let's say their only profession, their only ability to work is in a job where they have to be in the heat, or they're in a situation which they would not be able to work if they were fasting, and they really don't have any other choice. Again, like there's no other job that they can get, they need this livelihood, and to fast and perform that job is going to be impossible in this extreme situation, which doesn't apply to most people. Then they are again allowed to open their fast and just have the very minimum amount of water or drink or food that they need to have. Everybody's with me so far, inshallah. My voice is coming through clearly, and no questions or comments on this. If I can just get like a indication that my voice is coming through and everything's okay, I'll continue, inshallah.
Alhamdulillah, nice and clear. Jazakallah khairan.
Thank you. Other points are that another point in this regard is that if somebody is fearful that fasting will make them sick, okay, we'll come to the point about a doctor telling you, but basically the main criteria here of whether you cannot fast is whether you have a fear yourself. Okay, well, as we'll just see in the next slide, it's not to do with the doctor. It's whether you have a rational fear, not that you're a very, very waswasi, overly fearful person. No, you're a normal person. A normal person in your situation would have a rational grounds to fear that fasting is going to make me become sick. It's going to harm me. Right now, yeah, okay, it's going to like, well, I think in the future upcoming slides, there'll be points about sickness that, for example, I'm going to fall sick or I am sick and it's going to prolong my sickness. It's going to make my sickness worse. It's going to harm me in some way. In these situations, of course, I don't have to fast. Right? So just having a fear is enough here. If I have a logical, rational fear that I should not fast, it's going to harm me, that's enough. I can not fast because of that. Of course, I have to do the qada later on. Unless this is like a permanent scenario, we'll come to that as well, inshallah. So with regards to a doctor's opinion, the doctor's opinion in and of itself doesn't matter according to the ahkam. What matters is whether that doctor can affect your fear. Let's say the doctor doesn't appreciate the importance of fasting and they're very quick to say, no, don't fast. And you don't trust them. You still feel that, no, there's no fear, there's no harm. I can fast. You have to fast. Okay, so what matters here is your own kind of assessment of the situation. Yeah, but of course, oftentimes the doctor does understand what is best for us. So oftentimes the doctor's word would give us that fear, and that is enough for us to not fast. And in fact, if I'm fasting and it is causing harm to me, that's not just invalid, it's a sin. I shouldn't be doing that. We're not allowed to harm our bodies. We have to, inshallah, try to take care of our bodies. This is, by the way, one of the secrets of spirituality that people don't give importance to, is that the body is our steed, our vehicle with which we want to, inshallah, obey Allah and live a life of servitude to Allah. So it behooves believers to pay importance to their body and to take care of their body as well. Yeah, so as I just mentioned, I think this slide is also clear based on what I mentioned, that even if I'm not sick right now, but I have a fear that fasting will make me sick. Maybe I just recovered from a sickness and I need some days to recuperate. And so I need to take it easy and not fast. In this situation also, I shouldn't fast. Somebody has posted a question saying, what would be the ruling of fasting makes concentration difficult, if fasting, I think, makes concentration difficult and other people's lives are at risk because of it? Like a doctor who doesn't sleep regularly and coffee and food is important throughout the day to take care of sick patients. So with regards to this question about a doctor who doesn't sleep regularly and food and coffee is important, I think it would go back to that slide that I had earlier right here, where the question is this the only profession? Do you need to like work in this job right now? Can you not take time off? Can you not change something? Can you not find another job? You know, like all these things need to line up in order for it to be a very dire situation for you to then not fast. Otherwise, the default is that no, fasting is a very, very important obligation in Islam that we cannot just shy away from easily. Maybe you could talk to your workers to work, like your boss, to work less in the month of Ramadan, take off in the month of Ramadan, work some other job that doesn't require that coffee and that long hours and stuff. All these things need to be first attempted. Another question was asked as well, how should parents support a baligh boy or baligha girl who has this fear? Children's fear may not be as rational. Asant, this is true. I haven't thought about this too much. Maybe I can get back to you, but I would assume that like, you know, if Sometimes maybe that fear might not be there in the child, but the question is when that fear is there, the child feels that they're not able to. Of course, as much as the parents can, they should try to convince the child, tell the child what they're doing, what they should be doing, how it is responsible. Maybe the parents can somehow assist the child to have like an easier schedule where they sleep a lot in the daytime, they eat a very healthy meal in the morning. Such things, I guess, can be must be tried. We cannot easily just, we must try to impress upon the child that when this is what I was saying, that until they're baligh, we don't need to at all push them. We shouldn't even push them. But once they become baligh, it's very serious. Baligh and baligha, at that point, it is a responsibility. If they're absolutely not able to, we should then help them maybe travel so that they are not it's obligated to fast, or do something such that they are not going to be put in that scenario where they would commit a sin. But it is a very serious obligation upon them. I mean, although if it is really, really difficult for them, then those rules were also there, that somebody who is, extremely in an extremely difficult situation, they are allowed to open their fast and have a minimal amount of water, for example. So we have to kind of consider all of these things. Okay, the next thing that I had here is that, okay, there is a concept of something called fidya that we will talk about, that it is a certain kind of food that needs to be given to a poor person, a certain amount. It applies in certain situations. One situation where fidya, well, like I said, we'll come to it a bit more detail later on. One situation where it applies is that for an elderly person who is finding it difficult to fast. So again, everybody who finds it difficult to fast does not have to fast, okay? But there's a specific thing that changes if they are considered elderly, if they have that title. Now, when exactly does that title apply? I don't think the Maraji are going to tell us that. This is just something that we have to ourselves kind of figure out, that in society, is this individual considered an elderly person or not? When they are considered elderly, if now they find it too difficult to fast, then they don't fast and they have to pay fidya. Okay, so we'll come to what fidya is, but for each day that they don't fast, so 30 days of the month, they didn't fast because it was too difficult for them. Even here, there's this interesting division, as you can see on the sides, that there's one time where it's absolutely impossible. There's no way they can fast. There's another time where no, it's possible, but it's hard for them to fast. So here, if it's hard for them to fast, they don't fast. They don't need to fast. But then instead, they should pay fidya for every day of the month that they don't fast. They pay 750 grams of food they must give to a poor person. Like I said, we'll come to this details of what fidya is, but this is one of the situations where fidya applies. We'll come to other situations. Another point right here in this slide is that I mentioned this already. Okay, so if I'm sick, earlier we had a slide about how if I'm not sick and it's going to make me sick. Here we're saying that if I'm sick already and it's going to prolong my recovery, it's going to increase my sickness, it's going to increase my pain. In these situations, I also don't need to fast, even if I just have the fear of that happening. However, no, there are situations where I might be a little bit sick, but it's not a big deal. I can fast. Neither is it going to increase the pain that I have, nor is it going to prolong my sickness, nor is it going to increase my sickness. In this situation, it's still wajib upon me to fast. Like is on the slide in front of us. Like you have a mild cough and you're feeling a bit uncomfortable, but no, that doesn't matter. You still need to fast. It's still wajib upon you to fast. But in the first example on the top of this slide, if no, you're really sick, you need to keep drinking fluids to get better, here you don't fast. Fasting is invalid, in fact, because it's going to harm you. You shouldn't fast, and you would do the qada later on. Okay, there's an interesting point specifically about sicknesses. If this sickness now remains until the next year. Let's say somebody has like a situation, a heart problem, diabetic problem, some sickness where there's no way they can ever fast. Year after year, they just have to constantly open their fasts. They start fasting maybe, but then they have to eat a pill, and then that pill makes them, renders their fast invalid. if that's the case, then because this sickness is prolonged and continuing until the next year, when the next year reaches, there's no more any responsibility for qada upon them. It's not like they're going to pass away with this long list of qada fasts. No. After 1 year of sickness remaining, there is no more qada, but they have to give that fidya. For each day of the month that they didn't fast, that same fidya that we had discussed for an elderly person would also be applied over here. I'll mention one more point about fidya for expecting mothers and feeding mothers, and then I'll just take a quick break if anybody has any questions again. So one more category. So we spoke about elderly people and how they have to pay fidya in a certain situation. Another category of people who have to pay fidya are expecting mothers and breastfeeding mothers. But here it isn't just any expecting mother. It is basically, yeah, like it says, close to delivery over here. It is those women who are towards the end of the pregnancy. For example, if they're in the 9th month, that would be considered towards the end of the pregnancy. Okay. So both the breastfeeding mothers and the expecting mothers, if towards the end of the pregnancy, if they feel that there is any fear for the health of themselves or the baby, in that situation, they don't fast, and then they have to, in addition to paying the qada later on, when they become out of this situation, they would do the qada. In addition to that, they have to pay fidya for every day that they didn't fast. So there were these 3 categories, therefore, that fidya applies to. There were the elderly, the breastfeeding mothers, and ladies who are expecting, but not just any lady expecting, a lady who is towards the end of the term of pregnancy. Yeah, so for example, on the slides we have that, for example, the doctor does an ultrasound and then she tells the mother that, no, you can't fast. It's not healthy for the child. You need to be eating very frequently. In this situation, the lady shouldn't fast. And if she's towards the end of her pregnancy, she would also need to pay fidya. Some of the maraji, we will see this written in their books that for a breastfeeding mother, they can only avoid fasting if there is no alternative. Okay, so if there's no like other lady that can nurse the baby, or if there's no option of giving formula. Okay, so we might see that written. For example, Ayatollah Sistani in his main book of Ahkam, that is explicitly there. However, we need to after talking to experts in fiqh, we realize that if we have concluded that giving formula to a child is harmful, then that's no longer an option. We can't harm our children. And so then that option is not there. Basically, the only healthy, good option would be to breastfeed the child. And therefore, if the woman is fearful that breastfeeding will or her milk will become less if she fasts, then she doesn't fast, and the thing of qada and fidya would apply. Okay, I'll take a quick pause in case anybody has any questions or comments. I would highly encourage you to please, even just comments, feel free to add something, will be beneficial for the others to hear. Nobody wants to say anything? Okay, let's go on then. The next point is about traveling. So one thing to keep in mind is that it's not haram to travel. If somebody wants to travel, even to run away from fasting, let's say it's the summertime, the fasts are long, you don't want that. Okay, it's not good. Fasting, we should look at fasting as a blessing, as an opportunity to really, it is a very, very amazing spiritual experience that my father will, inshallah, talk about in the upcoming section of this presentation. But if somebody really wants to, it's not haram for them to travel, even travel solely for the purpose of avoiding to fast. It's not going to be haram for them. It is apparently it's ihtiyat mustahab that even for a traveler to stay away from food, drink, and the other intercourse in the time of the month of Ramadan, but it's not haram, and so somebody could travel and eat food. That's not going to be an issue. So The thing about the rule about fasting and traveling is whenever you are traveling and your namaz is qasr. Okay, so for example, there are situations when your namaz will not be qasr even though you are traveling. I'm sure you're all familiar with these rules. Very quickly, for example, you're staying somewhere for 10 days. You've made a niyyah that you're going to stay in a certain city that's not your home for 10 days. Or you're traveling, but you're traveling to another city that is also your home, also your watan. Okay, so then that also you're sure, in a sense, you're on a trip. Let's say I was living in Toronto and I was studying in Waterloo. So I could travel to Waterloo from Toronto, my home, but Waterloo is also now has the ahkam of my home, my watan. Or if you travel so frequently that there is this unwan, this title that kicks in called a frequent traveler. Now, I won't go into the details here, and there is a very big difference amongst Maraji of how they define this frequent traveler. But when that kicks in, then you don't pray qasr at all. So in these situations, when you're not praying qasr, then you can fast. But if you are in a normal situation where you're traveling and you're praying qasr namaz, your 4 rakat prayers are now 2 rakat prayers, then you're not allowed to fast. You don't fast in that situation. Okay? A few more points that so for example, one of the rules to do with namaz becoming qasr is that you need to be traveling a certain distance. Nowadays, it's nothing like a trip of 44 kilometers or 41 kilometers according to Ayatollah Khamenei, 44 according to Ayatollah Sistani. That's nothing nowadays. That doesn't take long in a car to go. And so as soon as you're embarking upon such a journey, you would no longer pray full, you would no longer fast. That too it kicks in once you've reached a certain distance outside of your home city called the Hadd al-Tarakhus. Okay, so again, there's different definitions of how we do this, but for Ayatollah Sistani, I believe it is just simply this, that you are a little bit of a distance outside of the city such that you can no longer be seen. People who are in the city, you're like, let's say, a kilometer, 2 kilometers away, people can no longer see you. Now you've reached the Hadd al-Tarakhus, you have that niyyah of making a trip of 44 kilometers, you can begin to eat. You can open your fast. You no longer pray full. There's details there that are you leaving from your home or are you leaving from a city where you were staying for more than 10 days? The rules differ. And then another point that I didn't mention is are you leaving before Dhuhr namaz or after Dhuhr namaz? That's very important. If you are in your home until the time of Dhuhr, then you have to fast that day. Okay, you don't get this exception. But if you leave before Dhuhr, then your fast is invalid. You have to fast in the morning, but let's say 10 o'clock in the morning, you're traveling from Toronto to Montreal. When you head out from Toronto at 10 o'clock in the morning, as soon as you reach the Hadd al-Tarakhus, you can open your fast. You no longer are, your fast is invalid, in fact. It's no longer going to be a sahih fast. So there's a whole bunch of rules here. Again, on the return trip, there's rules there that am I reaching my home before Dhuhr or after Dhuhr? If I'm reaching my home after Dhuhr, my fast is invalid. I was on a journey, even if I didn't eat anything, because I reached my home after Dhuhr, my fast is invalid. But if I reach home before Dhuhr and I didn't eat anything, I didn't do anything that would break my fast, then I can keep a fast. Okay, I could have eaten when I was coming home, when I was outside of my city, and then I wouldn't have had to fast. But if I didn't do anything that would break my fast, and then I reach home before Dhuhr, I can keep that fast. So these are all details that I didn't want to go into, but I said some of them right now. If there are more questions, you can ask them now. Otherwise, I was going to leave this discussion of traveling right now just with that and move on to some other discussions. I see there's some questions on the chat, so let me take a look at it. Okay, the one question is to do with a frequent traveler as traveling 3 days a week. Is that correct? No, that's not totally correct. Since you're asking, I'll just load it up and present it to you. Just give me 1 second. I have it handy. I'll just find it. Yeah, so basically for Ayatollah Sistani, when you are traveling, and one important difference between Ayatollah Sistani and others, although there are many differences in this regard, but one of the important differences is Ayatollah Sistani says it doesn't just have to be a travel that is for work purposes. Whereas other marajit, this frequent traveler title only kicks in for people who are traveling for work. Okay, that's one difference to keep in mind. For Ayatollah Sistani, he says, even if it's not for work purposes, if you are traveling for 6 months in the upcoming year, and in those 6 months, it will be 10 days in each month that you are traveling. Okay, so for a 10-day period in each month, it could be like 5 days in one trip and then 5 days in another trip. But in each of those 6 months in the year, you're going to be traveling for 10 days. Or if it's going to be a period of 2 years, one after the other, and in each one of those years, it's going to be 3 months. There may be some more details here, but generally the gist of it is something like this, that in these months, are you traveling for 10 days in the month, 6 months in 1 year, or 3 months per year for a period of 2 years? Then for the entire year in the 6-month case, or the entire 2 years in the 3 months case, you have that title of being a frequent traveler. And then any trip you go on, you are fasting and you are praying full. If somebody is actually like worried about whether this applies or not, please contact me and I can kind of look into the details of the situation. There are more details there that I didn't mention right now, but generally this is how it works. Okay. Inshallah, if I'm allowed, Papa, I'll go for another 10 minutes or so, but if I should end earlier, let me know, inshallah. Okay. So another point that I wanted to discuss is to do with qada fasts. So one thing is that generally, I won't mention this thing of Ayatollah Khamenei. Generally, the way these ahkam are is when you have a doubt about some responsibility you had. Let's say you don't know how many qada fasts you had. For a book that has all these common rules, I really don't know. I mean, of course, the main book is the Islamic laws book of Ayatollah Sistani, but to be honest, it's not an easy book for people to just simply read. It's full of very detailed masail. And so I think generally speaking, the free method of making sure your ahkam are correct is to be in touch with somebody who can answer questions. That's what all of us kind of need, a teacher to go back to and double check things with. Okay, so generally I was saying that whenever we have doubt about a responsibility, that did I perform it or not, generally the rule is this, that I can just suffice it to do the qada of what I'm sure I missed. So I don't know, did I miss 1 year of namaz, or did I miss like 14 months of namaz? Let's say in my youth, God forbid, I didn't take namaz seriously, and there was a period of time I didn't pray. Okay, so if I know that I'm definitely sure that 1 year I didn't pray at all, then I need to do qada of 1 year. I don't need to worry about the beyond that. Beyond that would be like mustahab to do, but I don't have to do it. Maybe mustahab, you can say. Similarly, for fasting, Ayatollah Sistani's rule is very straightforward, that that's the way it is. If you have doubt that did you miss 10 fasts or 15 fasts in previous years, you just need to do qada of those that you are sure that you missed. Another point is that this is important for like ladies and mothers and people who are missing fasts. Do you need to, is it wajib upon you to do the qada of the fast that you missed before the next month of Ramadan? Ayatollah Sistani says no. For Ayatollah Khamenei, it's ihtiyat wajib, so even people following him could do ruju to Ayatollah Sistani potentially, and it's not really wajib. So you don't need to stress out a mother who maybe took it easy, missed some fasts, and then it was hard for her to fast through the year. She doesn't need to stress out in the month of Sha'ban that, oh, I have to do all these qadas before the month of Ramadan starts. It's not that big of a deal. We shouldn't delay too much, of course, such that it's like we're taking the Sharia lightly, but it's not wajib to do your qada before the next month of Ramadan kicks in. Okay. This slide is something that I already talked about, so I don't think I need to. Oh yeah, okay. I talked about fidya for a nursing mother, an expecting mother, and an elderly person. Okay. There's one more situation where somebody needs to pay fidya, although oftentimes they don't call this fidya. They might call it kafara of delaying. Okay, but even though the word kafara might apply, sometimes we might use the word fidya for this because that kafara is the exact same amount as this fidya that we'll just talk about in the next slide, I think, that what is it exactly? And so what is this? This is the kind of kafara, or we could call it fidya, that somebody needs to pay if they didn't do their qada for an entire year. So the example that I just gave, that a mother missed some fasts in the last year, and she took it easy. She could have fasted through the year to make up those qada fasts, but she didn't do that. The next year comes, okay, she doesn't have to do the qada before the next month of Ramadan. But if she doesn't, then she still needs to do the qada in the future, and she needs to pay fidya as well. This doesn't accumulate. If she delays for 2 years, 3 years, it's not like every year she has to pay another fidya for that same fast. No, it only kicks in once, that if you delay for 1 year, you don't fast, you have this fidya, or this kafara of delaying, that you need to pay for each fast. What is fidya, or what is this kafara of delaying? It is 3/4 kilogram of food. So 750 grams of food that we have to give to a poor Muslim. Or according to Ayatollah Sistani, the aspect of being a Shia is also required. This is normal, that in fiqh, sometimes certain things are for the mu'mineen only, and mu'min in fiqh means a Shia. So yeah, basically you need to give them this food. None of us practically give the food, right? So something to keep in mind here is that we have to give the food. If we are giving money, we have to make this niyyah that I'm not, like what I'm doing by giving money to this institution, this office of the marja, this charity institution that's going to go pay the poor person or give the food to the poor person, is that I'm giving wikala to them. I'm making them my wakil to give the actual fidya. Even they can then make the poor person the wakil. They might be giving money to the poor person and saying, oh, you are the wakil to go buy that food for yourself. That's all possible. But technically, because we're giving money, it's actually wikala that's happening. It's not the actual payment of the fidya. The payment of the fidya can only be given in the food. For example, wheat, barley, or some other kind of food item. Okay, so that's a little bit about fidya. Maybe we should just leave it at that. I think I've taken about almost all the time anyways. I had some more discussions ready. I can take a few more minutes,
Go ahead, go
Papa,
ahead,
or I can
go
end
ahead.
there, yeah? Okay. So I'll speak for another 5 minutes, inshallah. A few points about things that might break. So the things that do break our fast, the things we must abstain from in the month of Ramadan, I think we generally know them, but quickly to reiterate: food and drink, liquid enema. So this is a kind of like medical thing that is inserted through the anus that is used for certain medical purposes. Vomiting, all of these, of course, intentionally, if they are done intentionally, it would break our fast. If you forget, if you vomit out of, unintentionally, you vomit, you forget your fasting, you eat, obviously it's not going to break our fast. Swallowing thick dust and smoke, immersing the head underwater, there's Ayatollah Sistani says it's extremely makruh, but it doesn't break your fast. This is a kind of maybe unique opinion of his. Generally, other maraji have it either as something that breaks your fast based on a fatwa or based on ihtiyat wajib. Spousal relations, or God forbid, istimna, masturbation, intentionally remaining in the state of janaba, or haid, or nifas. If a lady's haid or nifas period has finished, intentionally not doing the ghusl before the time of fajr, this would break your fast. Or intentionally, God forbid, lying about Allah Ta'ala or the Holy Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. There's a lot of points here that can be said, but some of them, like there's a lot of details, of course, here. Certain situations will cause kafara to apply. Certain situations would just cause qada. Certain exceptions apply. Some of the interesting things are, for example, let's say I cough up some mucus and it actually comes into my mouth. This happens sometimes. So a lot of maraja say, no, you shouldn't swallow that. But luckily for most of us who follow Ayatollah Sistani says it's okay. You can actually swallow it. Maybe he says, okay, it's better not to, but even you intentionally swallow that mucus that comes up, it's not going to break your fast. For Ayatollah Sistani. Again, like I was saying, generally speaking, if we unintentionally swallow water, it's okay. But there are some exceptional cases where, like, let's say I'm just gargling, not for wudu, not for like brushing my teeth or something. I'm just gargling to cool down, to enjoy. And then by mistake, I swallow water. In that situation, I may actually need to do the qada as well. So generally, it's generally all of these things that break our fast, if we do it unintentionally, it's not gonna have any effect, but some exceptions may apply. Brushing our teeth is okay. It's not gonna break your fast. In fact, generally, we don't want to trouble people around us. Let's say I go to work, I'm working with other people. If I have bad breath, that's not nice. So, it's okay to brush your teeth. I mean, it's actually makruh to use a wet toothbrush, but still, it's also not good to trouble other people. So even to do something that's makruh in this situation, we can say it's okay to do that, because we don't want to have bad breath. Flossing, this is a question. Some people's teeth may be such that, like, when they're eating sahri, a lot of food is getting stuck in their teeth. Do they need to floss or not? You don't need to floss unless you're sure that by not flossing, you are going to swallow food, which I think even somebody who gets a lot of food stuck in their teeth, they're probably not going to be sure, absolutely sure that if I don't floss, I'm going to swallow food. So we don't need to say it's like necessary to floss. Of course, it's always good to have oral hygiene and floss and brush. You don't have to. Okay, let's leave it at that. وصلى الله على محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. Okay, thank you very much. That was good at least that I didn't have to bother about massage just now, because otherwise it will be double what kind of responsibilities. You have to actually perhaps before you go to rest, make sure that you give your email on the chat so that people can contact you in case there are any question. So that
Sure,
way,
sure.
please
I'm
leave your
writing
email
that right now. Sure.
on the contact. Yeah. Subhanallah. Now we will discuss about this the spiritual aspect. And let me begin with this dua, although I should have started the dua earlier before passing over the responsibility on faith, but here it is. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa Muhammad. Allahumma wafiqna lima tuhibbu wa tarda. ولا تكلنا إلى أنفسنا طرفة عين أبدا. اللهم اشرح بالقرآن صدري واستعمل القرآن بدني ونور بالقرآن بصري واطلق بالقرآن لساني وعيني عليه ما أبقيتني فإنه لا حول ولا قوة إلا بك. This is beautiful dua. What we have done is the first dua, Allahumma fikna lima tuhibbu wa tarda. Actually, this is a dua which we always try to pray, that may Allah give us the feet to do things which would please Allah, which Allah loves, it would please. So that is a very special dua, and you can pray as it is, or you can also, for example, just say in singular, Allahumma fikni lima tuhibbu wa tarda. What I have done, it is made into plural, Allahumma fikna. Oh Allah, give us tawfiq towards that thing which you love and which you are pleased. وَلَا تَكِلْنَا إِلَى أَنفُسِنَا طَرْفَةَ عَيْنٍ. This is again a dua of the Prophet, but what we have done is that we have changed into plural form. Prophet used to pray often, again and again, وَلَا تَكِلْنِي إِلَى نَفْسِي طَرْفَةَ عَيْنٍ. But do not leave to myself, even for the blink of an eye. Now this is interesting. Person like Prophet, who was a great person, the most beloved of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the one who was the city of knowledge, the one who was the teacher of wisdom, right? The one who was infallible. Even then, he used to pray to Allah that do not leave to myself, even for a blinking of an eye. So this shows that how much we need Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is more so, and this kind of consciousness that we need Allah and all the time, we depend on Allah. this is in the Ramadan is the best time to develop that kind of thing, to train. And then what you find in bold is the dua taught by Amir Mu'mineen after ending tilawat of Quran. So inshallah, month of Ramadan, although we do tilawat every day, but in the month of Ramadan, people have this practice that they recite Quran every day, perhaps the whole sipara, half a sipara, whatever it is. After that, we recite this dua. And it is interesting dua. This shows that what should your interaction with the Quran, right? Allahumma shrah bil Quran sadri. Oh Allah, widen my chest through the Quran. Wasta'amil Qurani badani. And then Allah, let my body follow the Quran, right? This body should follow the Quran. That means we will try to learn the Quran and follow it. وَنَوِّرْ بِالْقُرْآنِ بَصَرِي. And oh Allah, enlighten my eyes through the Quran. This is important that our eyes should be enlightened through the Quran, and this would happen that we read Quran again and again, that our eyes is all the time reciting Quran, right? Quran lisani. And of course, not only that, oh Allah, let my tongue speak according to the Quran. In other words, we should not say things which are haram. Quran is haram. So not backbiting, lying, singing, all those things which are not allowed, my tongue should not be knowing that, right? So let my tongue talk, the way according to Quran. واستعمل Quran, and then we say, that وَعَيْنِي عَلَيْهِ مَا أَبْكَيْتَنِ. Oh Allah, just help me to stay on the Quran as long as I live. So our life should be a walking Quran. إِنَّهُ لَا حَوْلَ وَلَا قُوَّةَ إِلَّا بِكَ, because the real strength and power belongs to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So by reciting this sentence at the end, Imam is saying that in all this aspect, we need the help of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Ramadan, it is really a spring for the present life. Keep in mind that our life, if you want to have a pleasant life, what Quran talks is hayat and tayyiba. Hayat and tayyiba is a life which is a pleasant life. And I feel that the spring of that means the best time of trying to have a pleasant life, a good life, it is month of Ramadan. I'll tell you why. So let's look at this ayat. It is ayat number 97, surah number 16, An-Nahl. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. من عمل صالحا من ذكر أو أنثى وهو مؤمن فلنحيينه حياة طيبة ولنجزينهم أجرهم بحسب ما كانوا يعملون. Allah says that whoever acts righteously, whether male or female, should be faithful, we shall reward him with a good life. You can say Allah says, فَلَنُحْيِيَنَّهُ, that means to give the hayat, of a life which is tayyiba, right? And not only that, and we pay them reward by the best of what they used to do. So you can see there are two things which Allah is asking here. One is amal salih, another is iman. Man amila salihan min dhakra unsa wa huwa mu'min. The person who performs good deeds and is a believer, right? Whether it's a boy or a girl, male or female, right? So this is the requirement. In the month of Ramadan, of course, you'll find the one who's fasting is a believer, right? A Muslim or no, will be fasting. He believes that this fasting is wajib. So he's a believer already. Then he's doing a good deed. Fasting is a good deed because, although it's wajib, but it's a good deed because we are doing it, out of what? Out of obedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And depriving ourselves of the basic needs like food and drink, right? So we are following Allah's command. So you are in the state of obedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which is amal salih already. We are in the state of obedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So it is amal salih. And then of course we are believers. So then Allah promises for us. He says, فَلَنُحْيِيَنَّهُ حَيَاةً طَيِّبَةً. We shall actually revive for him a good life. And hayat tayyiba is good life. Even, for example, Al-Bari says good life. Yusuf Ali says a life that is good and pure. So different translators have translated differently. Just I give it a different translation. So Allah Azza wa Jalla commands to perform good deeds and be faithful to achieve the present life. We already do that, as I said, in the state of fasting, right? We fast, we pray, we recite du'as, we give sadaqah and charity, we seek forgiveness in Ramadan. So we are already in the state of amal salih, alhamdulillah. And that's why I see that when we come to spirituality, month of Ramadan is the best season. Is the best season. Let us try to actually take advantage of it. You'll be surprised that person like Prophet, when the month of Rajab, when he would see the crescent of Rajab, he say, Allahumma barik lana fi Rajabin wa Shaban, uballighna shahr Ramadan. Right? He says that, oh Allah, bless us in the month of Rajab and Shaban, and let us reach and witness month of Ramadan. So that is a special time. So when inshallah Allah gives us life for another 10 days, 15 days, when Ramadan comes, right? If you are there and we witness this thing, keep in mind it is a very, very special month. Nobody or no person or no idea or nobody should try to mislead you that no, this is like any other month. No, it is a very special month, and there is no doubt in it. And if you and me are alive to witness that thing, let us take benefit of it every moment of it, right? So that is a present life which Quran talks about Hayat and Tayyibah. I think the spring of that, the best season is Ramadan. Now the question comes sometimes, especially youths, right? Because you have to fast, or sometimes, although you heard that no, we don't have to force our children to fast, but let's say that you're encouraging your child to even fast half a day, or at least participate in Quran Khani and other good things. They may ask why. Why does Allah want us to go through all these difficulties of not eating, not drinking, and some of us, for example, are deprived of sleep also because of there's a change in pattern, right, in life. Eating and drinking timings have changed. We go to masajid, we go for recite Quran, we recite Salat al-Tahajjud, all those things. So the lifestyle is changing. I know some of my friends always say that everything is doable. But no, what we really face difficulty is that we do not get enough sleep, right? There's a lack of sleep. So I can understand that thing, that happens, right? So maybe sometimes somebody has this question, or Shaitan would bring that question. So I could just come up with a few reasons. That based on Quran, Hadith, and the practice of Masameen and the lifestyles of great ulama, right? Here it is. To awaken us from a worldly stupor. We are so much sometimes immersed in this world that we need to be awakened. Ramadan is the time. Let us, for a moment, just pause and let us look at our life, which is full of demand, running, day and night, right? All these things. So this is it. There was a question earlier asked about the doctor who is, working hard and has to take a coffee. I understand that thing. Especially, this was very difficult during COVID, right? But if any person who is working hard, whether a doctor or engineer or a contractor or anybody, if you can take a break in Ramadan, do that. If you can take a half a day's break, you can take a leave, this is it. I know this, I would like to take my leave in summer so I go and enjoy it. No. If you think that your work is such that by working in Ramadan, it disrupts your spirituality. It takes away that pleasure, that special feeling of Ramadan, it takes away. Believe me, I would advise that you take leave in Ramadan rather than taking summer so that you go out. Because try to enjoy the spirituality of it. Of course, when you cannot, then those messages come there, right? So awaken from us from the worldly stuff to help us slow down and savor spiritual pleasures. Yes, we slow down because our life is full of demand, especially subhanallah. I will notice as I work with people because I run a charity, so we depend a lot on volunteers, a lot. But whether it is a young or an older person, a boy or a girl, at every stage you have to push them. At every stage, so much so that even it is embarrassing for us to remind them, that do this. And I know that they don't mean bad. When, for example, if they have not delivered what they promised, they don't mean not to do that. It is the lifestyle which people are leading nowadays that they're just juggling with time. Inshallah, I've been thinking that when I'll be given opportunity to recite a majlis in a big gathering, I'm going to talk about how do we live the life, to overcome this, juggling with life and time, especially. Everybody is pressed with time. Everybody, yes. So this is Ramadan is help us to slow down and serve spiritual pleasure instead of all these, physical things and financial things and all those things. Let us put some time in spiritual pleasures of Ramadan. It is a very special time. Okay. Number three, to relieve us of our burdens of sins and heedlessness. Prophet says, subhanallah, in hadith, that in Ramadan, try to lengthen your sajda. Why? He says, because this back are burdened with sins. Right? We don't see it. Subhanallah, if Allah were to remove the blindness from our eyes, if Allah were to remove blindness from your eyes to see how much I am immersed in sins, you won't even attend the class. You won't even say salam to me. You say, this is the person I thought that, he's a person who is guiding us, but this is how much his sins are. So there is so much sins, but Allah, through his kindness and through his mercy, is hiding those things. But Prophet says, go to sajda and lengthen it. That way you lighten your burdens, right? So this is Ramadan is the time that through fasting, prayers, dua, istighfar, charity, those things are lightened, and even the heedlessness, that we are so much heedless, for example, certain things, this is the time to bring us closer to Allah. Although at every namaz we say that I am saying 2 rakat fajr, qurbat Allah, seeking qurb of Allah, nearness of Allah, but that is so short, and even in that short time of, notice this honestly, one day just do this homework, right? That you say 2 rakat namaz, immediately after that, instead of tasbih, instead of what dua or anything else, just take a pen and just think how many times did your mind got distracted in the 2 minutes of prayers. 2 rakat takes 2 minutes, maximum 3 minutes. In the 3 minutes, how many times did the mind get distracted? Do you see this thing? So yes, we are trying to get near to Allah at every prayers, but you can see how much shaitan distracts us, right? But when you are fasting, subhanAllah, that is the long period. So you are spiritual already. You are closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through fasting, right? So even if, for example, momentarily, if you get distracted, but you are still fasting. So this is the best time to get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. To develop the sympathy for the less fortunate. Because when we are fasting, we go through this hunger, through what thirst, right? And we realize what people are going through, right? So at least this is that we are kind of sympathy that Allah has given me. Let me share with the one who is unfortunate, right? And then, of course, to instill the self-discipline. There's nothing better than Ramadan, than bringing out self-discipline, because you can see that you have the food, you don't take it. You have the water, you have coffee, you've got juice, everything within your reach, right? You just don't take it because Allah has commanded. So if you can train yourself to deprive even the basic needs, the necessities, imagine things which are not even basic. Lying is not a basic necessity. You can sometimes, you can definitely stay from. Backbiting is not a necessity of life. Talking about somebody is not a necessity of life. Stealing is not a necessity of life, right? So when a necessity of life can be put aside because of Allah's command, then other things becomes easier, right? So it is the best time to self-discipline, right? And this is also the best time to look at the Quran, the final divine message. This reminds me, subhanAllah, the Prophet says, if you recite an ayat of Quran in the month of Ramadan, it is like you are going to complete the entire Quran. Can you imagine? There are 6,236 ayat of Quran. So for one ayat, you get the reward of 6,200 verses. When would you get? Even when there is a special sale, you get buy one, you get one free, right? Buy two, one free. Buy one, you get the other half price. But you can imagine if one for 6,000. Why is it so? in my humble opinion, the reason is that Allah wants you to look at the Quran, open the Quran, look at this. This is the final message of your Lord. Look at this thing. So it is a moment where every Muslim makes a point to open the Quran, look at it in any way they can do it. So it is Ramadan which will make us do this thing. Now, in the month of Ramadan, we should be doing it all. We should be listening to Quran. So when you are driving, for example, in North America, I don't know about maybe Europe also, but yeah, Europe also more because Europe also they've got a very short roads, so it takes longer. So Europe and also North America and perhaps maybe all over the world nowadays, traffic has increased. So we spend a lot of time commuting. Don't waste that time. That is the time for you to listen to the Quran. But as long as, of course, be careful that if you are driving, so it should not distract you. Otherwise, no, it will be difficult. But if as long as you can keep your concentration driving, or for example, going by bus or train, you can still have your concentration. This is the time. Listen to the Quran, right? Recite the Quran, but don't just. People spend a lot of time reciting Quran, even sometimes listen to Quran, but they forget about studying the Quran. This is also the season. Because the hadith says, لِكُلِّ شَيْءٍ رَبِيعٌ وَرَبِيعُ الْقُرْآنِ Ramadan. For everything, there is a best season, spring. And the spring of Ramadan, the spring of Quran is Ramadan. It doesn't say, وَرَبِيعُ الْقِرَاءَةُ الْقُرْآنِ وَرَبِيعُ تِلَاوَةُ الْقُرْآنِ. No, he just says وَرَبِيعُ الْقُرْآنِ. That means that the best season for Quran is Ramadan. So, in my humble opinion, that we should not just confine to reading or listening, but also studying the Quran. How do you do? For example, sometimes you can try to recite the verse and try to find the meaning, ponder over it, right? You listen to from the tafsir of Quran, for example, a surah. All those things you can do that. So besides reciting, listening, you also do that. And then I teach Quranic Arabic for the last few years. I tell my students that once you are a Quranic Arabic student, you have raised yourself a status. You are in a higher status. There was a time you were listening to the Quran, you were reciting the Quran, now you are studying the Quran. And if you do that, you can see in this hadith, if one learns one clear letter, Allah writes for him the reward of 10 good deeds, reduces his 10 evil deeds, and raises him 10 degrees. Besides, if you see listener, it's only 1 degree. If you listen, only 1 degree. If you read, only 1 degree. But studying is 10. So this is also the best time to also make sure that within your program that you do in Ramadan, there should be time kept for studying the Quran, appreciating the Quranic message, trying to understand what Allah is trying to say. And because this is the best season, don't be surprised. You will notice, and I really, perhaps I can even say that I give you my word that you will find that it is even what the things you have learned in Quran will be in Ramadan will be long lasting. The Quranic lessons you learned in the Ramadan will be long lasting, inshallah. This is a slide which I'm not going to get into just now. Inshallah, the slides will be posted on the same. If you go to our website /Ali681, you'll find all these slides posted. But this is just I thought to familiarize yourself with the surah of the Quran. Now, this is a beautiful hadith. Ramadan must be completely in its all aspects, right? Keep in mind that Ramadan should be throughout in all aspects. Look at this hadith, it's so powerful, right? It shows that we should not take Ramadan light. He says, لا يكونن شهر رمضان عندكم غيره من الشهور فإن له عند الله حرمة وفضلا على سائر الشهور ولا يكونن شهر رمضان يوم صومكم كيوم فطركم. Those who know little Arabic, you can see لا يكونن. That noon with shadda, the original yakun, but adding yakunanna in both the places, our Prophet is saying, ensure, you must do that. So must be, Ramadan must be there in all aspects. Okay? Must be, you find it should cover all aspects of our life. So this is it that ensures, it says that the month of Ramadan with you should be not be like other months. Because with Allah, that means Ramadan has a sanctification and excellence, hurmat and also fazilat, or all other months. And ensure that your fasting day is in Ramadan is not like the day you are on not fasting, right? So it's not like any other day. Your fasting day should be different, automatically different. So it's not only different through not eating and drinking, everything, because the Prophet says the month should not be like any other month. Okay? So it is a very special month. The blessings of Allah are in abundance, lot of abundance. It's amazing only if you were to know. There is a hadith, subhanAllah, there's a hadith which says, if somebody were to really know the, the benefits of Ramadan, the good life in Ramadan, the excellence of Ramadan, he or she would wish that the entire year is Ramadan. Now imagine, as you know, that's not the case, because when we are fasting, a time comes, we are tired, we are waiting that when the month is over. I know people sometimes, unfortunately, don't realize it. When I was young, I didn't realize this thing. So what happened? I used to be with my friends, and then after 15th of Ramadan, the friends will get together, and then they will be happy. Happy about, they say now the graph is downwards. It was upwards, but now downwards, because as every day 29 fast remaining 30, but now after 15 now it's downwards, right? That should not be the case. In fact, it is that when the last month, last day comes, actually it's saddening. Also, the fourth Imam, you see the dua when he bids farewell, he's actually saying that this is the firak. The separation for Ramadan is so heavy. The way the person who is a very close person, very close relative, your father, your mother, your spouse, your child, whom you love so much, when it parts you, how much difficult it is. So Imam says that parting from Ramadan is that difficult, right? So this is it, that it is Ramadan actually is entire month. Let's not take it lightly. Okay? There are a few hadiths, because we have, alhamdulillah, still 10, 15 minutes. So I will continue doing it. Look at this thing, no? Yeah. I'll just take a few hadiths only. The hadith says, Ma Abdul Amal fi hadha shahr. Now, this is actually the khutbah of the Prophet welcoming the month of Ramadan. Imam Ali was there as he was giving this khutbah. It is known as khutbah Shabaniyah. Because Rasulullah, subhanAllah, you can see the Prophet, right? See his foresightedness. He prepared the Muslims about Ramadan in the last Friday of Shaban, right? So that's why the khutbah is known as khutbah Shabaniyah, that it was in the month of Shaban when he prepared. So he gave the whole khutbah, sermon, welcome the month of Ramadan. And then as he finished, Imam Ali stood up and he asked the question, Ma Abdul Amal fi hadha shahr. O Prophet of God, what is the best of the deeds in the month of Ramadan? Fakala ya Abul Hassan, this is the kunya of Imam Ali. Ya Abul Hassan, Abdul Amal fi hadha shahri al-wara' anil maharim. Says the best deed in this month of Ramadan is staying away, distancing yourself, being far from all kind of haram things. Wara is taqwa, but a higher level of taqwa. A piety, but a higher level. That you are not only not doing haram things, but you are staying away. So it should not going to distract you. For example, let's say that somebody, I'm sorry to give the example, but excuse me because I know there are some sisters also. But let's say somebody who's always goes out in the market and happens to, for example, see a non-mahram girl and loses his concentration, just looks at her, and then now the intention changes, or tries to derive, for example, pleasure by looking at non-mahram. If somebody is so weak and becomes, is a victim of such kind of sickness, God forbid, if somebody like that, so a wara would require that I will not even stay away from that. I'll stay in that situation that I have to be in that situation. So, for example, if you go to the market, just alhamdulillah, this year it won't be in summer here, at least as we are concerned in North America. This year, Ramadan will not be in summer. But let's say it was in summer and you go to the mall or go to market and people are just in their bikinis. And So just stay away from that. So wara is that you stay away completely. Of course, Summa Baka, this continues that, then Prophet cried because Prophet cried. Imam Ali asked why you are crying. So this is the day, this is the month you become Shaheed, right? So it's a different discussion. But this is it, you can see. That the best thing, so the least thing we should do in Ramadan, of course, fasting is wajib, but for spirituality, the least thing is we should not even think of doing any sin at all. No, just say that, oh Allah, I'm not masoom, but give me the ability that in the month of Ramadan, let me stay away from this thing. Oh, whether it is doing the deeds, whether speaking, whether even thinking, right? It should just not be there, right? Another hadith, subhanallah, this takes us to what we discussed earlier. Now, this is the fourth Imam, says, لو مات من بين المشرق والمغرب لما استوحشت بعد أن يكون القرآن معي. No, subhanallah. Imam Zain al-Abidin says, look at this Imam, subhanallah, who is the author of Sahih al-Jadiyah, right? But even then, still the respect of the Quran. He says, if everybody who dies from the east to the west, because human being is in need of other human beings, right? But Imam says, let's say, God forbid, if in such a way that everybody in the east and everybody in the west were to die, west will die, and I'm now alone, wahsha, right? Wahsha is the phenomenon of wahsha. For example, you are completely lonely. I'm lonely. But if I have Quran with me, then I would not feel at all loneliness. So do you see that company of the Quran, the love of the Quran, that uns by Quran, that you are finding Quran is your friend, right? And then wakana idha kara, subhanallah. And just as an example, we are told, wakana al Islam, that means when the Imam Sajjad would read Maliki yawmiddin, yukarriruha, he would repeat again, Maliki yawmiddin, Maliki yawmiddin, Maliki yawmiddin, hatta kada an yamut. He would do it in such a way that as if he's going to die soon. Why? Because Allah is the Malik of the day of judgment, and that's the day I'm supposed to present myself, all the deeds in His presence. Am I ready for that? No. So, do you see this thing? This is just an example, Imam, of course. This is known as tafa'ul with the Quran, that you're interacting with the Quran. So, this is how Imam was doing it. Okay. So, again, this is the best season of the Quran. One of the hadith also which I found for today's discussion, أيها الناس من فطر منكم صائما مؤمنا في هذا الشهر كان له بذلك عند الله عتق نسمة ومغفرة لما مضى من ذنوب. Now, this hadith is there, and let me translate first of all before commenting it. It says, أيها الناس, this is for everyone. Man fatara minkum sa'im. Anybody who is going to anybody who's going to open the fast, a person who is fasting. It means anybody who's going to arrange the iftar for somebody who is fasting, right? Kana lahu zalika indallahi itkum. It is like you freed one slave. And also forgiveness of your past sins. Now, I still am doing this kind of study. In my humble, of course, this applies to, just now the hadith doesn't say mu'min who is poor. So I have to be honest to what is there. I cannot add, I don't have the permission to add myself. It just says, feeding a believer who is fasting, right? But in my humble understanding, inshallah, when I get chance, I will talk to people who are more learned to get the understanding. Because in Quran, whenever there is the word it'am comes, it'am, that means feeding others. Quran always brings it'am al-masakin. It'am, feeding those who are poor, feeding those who are needy. Why I'm trying to say is that what happens because of this hadith or such things. For example, in the month of Ramadan, people have these iftar parties, right? That, okay, I invite you, you invite me, my friend invites me, So whole month we go to, for example, the time of namaz, we go there. Maybe if the person is arranged namaz, fine. Otherwise, all of us just say namaz very quickly. We open our fast, and there is, joy and everything, because everybody wants to try to do the best. I want to serve you the best of food. So we spend so much time in the iftar, talking, gossiping, everything. Hours pass by. Hours pass by. I don't think that is what is meant by this hadith. Not at all. So keep this in mind. Perhaps even, for example, so that is one thing which is practice which people do. The people, because I was at my friend's place, I was invited. I miss my namaz jamaat. I said my namaz very quickly. I missed my dua iftitar. I missed the lecture. I missed, for example, tasbihat. No, I missed my tilawat of Quran. What it was, right? Because of that. By the time I come home, it is 10:30, 11, I'm tired, I'm going to sleep. Right? Tomorrow I have to work. So this is what happens. Like day after day, because we are invited, right? So I don't think that is what is meant by this. Or, for example, okay, I'm going to donate in the Husseiniya. So they arrange iftar, which for example, in the community which I live, because it's a big community, so they announce, for example, that they are collecting, funds for iftar. So to sponsor one iftar at Jaffrey Center in Toronto, it will cost you $8,000. It's a huge thing, no? It's a big amount, even for a person who is rich, right? So you say, okay, I will do whenever half of it, one fourth of it, maybe 4 friends together or 8 friends together are going to sponsor, give $1,000, and we get the star. Inshallah, there is no doubt that you'll get the star and you have all the mu'mineen able to open their fast on account of your sponsorship. Inshallah, may Allah accept, it's fine. But I would still feel that if you are the donor of iftar, whether you sponsor the entire iftar or you sponsor half of it or one fourth of it or one eighth of it, doesn't matter. Make a point that you invite some people who are poor, people who are who cannot afford, will not have the best of iftar which we are enjoying in the masjid. They are so poor that they might have just water or little food. So make a point, even if it means that you have to go and bring them, for example, people who are do not have shelter, who live on the streets, right? Or you give them, for example, tomorrow there is a, for example, iftar at this center, and this is I'm giving you bus ticket. Take a bus, come there, you know. Or, for example, whatever is cooked at the masjid, you can take one bowl and go and give them. That will make a big difference. That will be that we are not only making iftar of a person who is fasting, but we are also giving iftar to somebody who is needy. So keep this in mind. Let's not forget the spirit of it. Although the hadith doesn't say mu'min fakiran, so I cannot add for myself. I want to respect what our imams will say. But if you see Quranic culture, look at Quran. Believe me, when you get time, just look at Quran. And when Quran talks about feeding, when Quran talks about helping and about taking karzasana, throughout there's so much charity discussed in the Quran is always for those who are needy, right? So that is important. That if you sponsor iftar, say in Tanzania, in Kenya, in Iraq, in India, in Pakistan, in Lebanon, where people are so poor, and then they open the fast, that will definitely go a long way. This is my, what humble understanding. Okay, we look at this one more hadith, and then I'll take any question. Imam Sadiq says that, "Oh, you, there should be peace and dignity, or humility and loneliness of a slave, afraid of his master. On you, that in the month of Ramadan, on you there should be peace and dignity, awe of Allah, humility, loneliness of a slave, afraid of his master, hopeful, fearing, having purified the heart of pollution, sanctified your inner secrets from evil, cleanse your body of dirt. You have given yourself to God in the days of your fast and emptied your heart for Him and given Him of yourself for whatever He has ordered you, invited you towards." So you can see Imam is telling us what should be our state. So if we try to follow this, what is mentioned here, subhanallah, then that will bring about spirituality. You see, that let's try to have that peace, dignity, awe of Allah, humility, subhanallah, Rasulullah, may our life be sacrificed. Rasulullah, when he would sit to eat, people say you would feel a slave is eating. Rasulullah, who is master of masters, right? He would be like a slave. Why? Because it is the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who has given him the food that he's enjoying. So to show the humility before Allah, the provider of the risk, he will be so humble, right? So that you owe humility, lowliness of a slave afraid of his master, hopeful, fearing, having faith. All these things should be combined as we fast and we spend the month of Ramadan. I will take questions if there are any from what I've discussed. Otherwise, inshallah, these slides will be posted on our website and even the recording will be posted, inshallah. Any questions? You can unmute yourself and ask the question, or you can put in in a chat box if you want to ask any questions. Okay, so if there are no
Assalamualaikum, I
questions,
do have a question. Assalamualaikum, I do have a quick question actually. We're always kind of torn between donating to a local mosque for iftar versus sending that same amount of money out to Afghanistan or Palestine, etc. And we do both, but because we want to keep the spirituality in a mosque for the youth and for the kids as well, we want to go for iftar. But what do you recommend in that sense? If somebody has $100 to donate for both, which one would you recommend to donate that money to? We're trying to keep the spirit of the mosque locally as well.
Yeah. So you see, you have two choices. One is that, for example, if there is a way that you can have the information from the treasurer that there is enough fund for the local mosque, that your not giving will not affect that, then you can send all that amount what you have, $100, to the needy. If you think that no, if I don't give my share and send everything out, then maybe the Imam Barga or the center will stop having iftar. Then that spirituality and get together will not be there. Then you have to just divide, right? Try to have both. So, but as I say that no, let us not forget the needy, the poor, who really need that thing. And nowadays, mashallah, because of what internet and WhatsApp, so we have information of so many organizations, so many people who are doing charity work in different parts of the world, and they really, our every dollar from here, really goes a long way. Then why would we ignore them? Why would we just, oh no, that's not my work, that is their work. I'm in Canada and somebody is in Afghanistan. What I have to do with this thing? No, I think that no, that's not attitude. So of course I know it's a difficult thing, but you have to see yourself that if you feel that no, people locally will take care of the local iftar, go ahead and share whatever limited is there to the poor. But if you think that no, if everybody will have the same kind of course, you don't need to announce this. This is your own amal, right? You don't need to say to others that no, I don't give my money to this center. Then even they'll stop doing that. We don't. This is our own amal. Even charity is an amal, right? So you just see yourself and think that no, where would it be needed most? Where we use most? No? Any other question? Okay, then I will take your permission. There is the other two slides which I have prepared, but we don't have time, but I'll just at least show you. You can quickly look at it. But again, as I said, that this will be posted, inshallah, on our website. So you can look at them, inshallah. So this is, both of these are from the dua of the fourth Imam, where he talks about Ramadan, and which also helps, in increasing our spirituality. Keep us in your duas, please. Thank you for attending this session. Every year we do this thing, and alhamdulillah, there are people who still take interest. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept these little efforts. May Allah give us tawfiq that our Ramadan this year is the best of Ramadan we have experienced so far in our life, inshallah. And especially don't forget to pray for people who are suffering in Palestine, inshallah. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.